For decades, marriage was marketed as the ultimate cornerstone of a stable, successful life, the gold standard of adulthood. It was seen as the bedrock of society itself. But here we are in 2025, and for a growing number of intelligent, ambitious men, that cornerstone now looks less like a foundation and more like a financial anchor dragging them down. For a man who's built his own success, marriage has quietly become, without exaggeration, the single riskiest legal and financial decision he could possibly make. I'm an entrepreneur, and today I'm going to break down the startling economic data and the deeply personal experience that made me walk away from the idea of a wedding ring and instead choose the path of financial and personal sovereignty. This isn't a bitter rant. It's not about resentment. This is about numbers, risk, and reality. By the end of this video, you'll see the data, the cold, emotionless math that explains exactly why so many smart men are quietly making the same decision. For generations, men were handed a script and told to follow it blindly. Build a career, find a good woman, get married, start a family, provide for them. That was the game. But here's the harsh truth. The rules of that game have been completely rewritten, and the penalties for men have never been higher. Today, we're pulling back the curtain. We're going to dissect the numbers, the laws, and the cultural shifts that have transformed marriage from a partnership into a high-stakes gamble, one where the odds are systematically stacked against men. Before I share how my own life was dismantled, I want to start with something bigger than my story, the data. Because what happened to me, and to countless other men I've spoken with, isn't just a string of unfortunate coincidences. It's part of a massive, verifiable statistical trend, the divorce rate deception. You'll hear mainstream voices say that divorce rates are at historic lows. Technically, that's true, but dangerously misleading. It's lower because fewer people are getting married at all. Among those who actually sign that contract, the failure rate remains catastrophic. Data still shows that between 40 and 50% of first marriages end in divorce. Let me put that in perspective every entrepreneur can understand. Imagine I walk into your office and pitch you an investment deal. I say, give me not just your capital, but full access to your future income. In return, I'll give you a partnership that has a coin flip chance of exploding in your face. And when it does implode, you don't just lose your investment. You're legally required to hand over half your net worth, your business, your home, and a significant portion of your future income, possibly for years. You'd laugh me out of the building. You'd call me insane. Yet society pressures men every single day to sign this exact contract, often without ever reading the fine print. Who pulls the plug? Now here's where the numbers get even more interesting and more crucial. Who's filing for divorce? Study after study shows that women initiate roughly 70% of divorces. In some demographics, that number climbs even higher. This isn't about blame. It's about risk management, because that statistic means in 7 out of 10 divorces, the man didn't make the decision to end the marriage. He's a passenger in a car, and when the driver decides to steer off a cliff, he's the one legally obligated to pay for the wreckage. The real cost of divorce. Let's talk dollars and cents. The average divorce cost in America is reported at about $11,300. That number? A fantasy. That's for the simplest, most amicable cases. The kind with no real assets. If you own a business, property, or investments, that figure skyrockets. A contested divorce can easily run $15,000 to $30,000 in legal fees alone, and for high net worth men, the total can climb into hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not a breakup, it's a financial black hole. And yes, some statistics show that college-educated men who marry after 25 have slightly lower odds of divorce. But even then, the failure rate doesn't vanish. It merely drops from 50% to maybe 30%. Would you risk your entire life's work on a gamble with a 1 in 3 chance of failure? The modern man's dilemma. Think about the typical success story for a man today. He spends his 20s and 30s grinding, learning, saving, and building. He sacrifices nights, weekends, relationships, all to carve out a stable, successful life. And the moment he reaches that peak, society whispers, now's the time to settle down. But what that really means is, now's the time to sign the one contract that could cost you half of everything you've built. So is it really any wonder that more men are looking at this equation and saying no thanks? By 2021, nearly 28% of men at age 40 had never been married, up from just 6% in 1980. That's not bitterness, that's mathematics. And for me, that math became brutally, heartbreakingly real. My story, the collapse. I did everything I was told to do. I followed the script to the letter. I didn't come from money. I built everything from scratch. In my mid-20s, armed with ambition and caffeine, I started a small tech company out of a dusty garage. 80-hour weeks, sleeping on the office floor. Every dollar went back into the business. And during those brutal early years, I met a woman. She was everything. Smart, beautiful, supportive. She understood the mission. When we finally landed our first big client, it felt like our victory. So naturally, when I proposed, it felt like the most logical next step in the world. We got married, bought a beautiful home, built the life I had dreamed of. The business exploded, from garage startup to multi-million-dollar enterprise. On the outside, I was the picture of success. I thought I was living the dream, but the end came so fast it left me stunned. The collapse and the consequences. It didn't end with a fight or a scandal. There wasn't a single dramatic explosion, just a slow, silent erosion. I was buried in the grind, laser-focused on expanding our empire. I didn't notice the tiny cracks forming. The late-night talks grew shorter. The laughter faded. Then came the line that changed everything. I feel like I've lost myself in your shadow. One day, I came home to an eerily quiet house, half empty. A single white envelope waited on the kitchen counter. Inside was the official notice. She'd already filed for divorce. And that's when the real education began. Not in business, but in how the system truly works. A legal battlefield where logic doesn't matter. I walked into the process naively thinking, we're reasonable people. We'll keep it amicable. I couldn't have been more wrong. The courtroom isn't built on fairness, it's built on formulas. The years I spent grinding in that garage before we even met meant nothing. Because the company's value had grown during the marriage, it was now legally classified as a marital asset. My business, my life's work, was suddenly on the auction block. Lawyers circled like sharks. Every risk I took, every late night, every dollar reinvested was now used against me to calculate how much of it she was entitled to. The court ordered me to pay temporary spousal support that exceeded most people's annual income. My personal and business accounts were frozen. I was forced to sell a large share of my own company, not to expand it, but to fund her legal team. It felt less like a divorce and more like a hostile corporate takeover of my entire existence. The builder in me, the man who created something from nothing, was being systematically dismantled. The emotional toll no spreadsheet can measure. The house I'd bought with pride was gone. The woman I once trusted became a stranger guided by lawyers whose mission was to maximize extraction. But the financial loss wasn't the worst part. The real pain was the betrayal, realizing that the life I built to protect us had been turned into the weapon that destroyed me. Something fundamental inside me broke. When the dust finally settled, I started talking to other men, successful, disciplined, intelligent men, and I discovered something chilling. My story wasn't rare. It was almost formulaic. One friend lost the home he'd inherited from his parents because its value appreciated during his short 2-year marriage. Another, a devoted father, was reduced to seeing his kids only every other weekend, his fatherhood reduced to a monthly payment labeled child support. These weren't failures of character. They were the predictable outcomes of a broken system. The harsh mechanics behind the trend. To understand why so many men are walking away, you have to remove the romance and look at what marriage truly is in the modern world. A state-sanctioned financial contract with catastrophic downside risk. Let's break it down. The economic black hole. There are 2 phrases that should make every successful man pause: alimony and asset division. Alimony, or spousal support, was originally designed in an era when women rarely worked and were financially dependent. But in today's world, it often operates like a lifetime penalty. In many states, alimony isn't based on actual need, it's based on maintaining the standard of living established during the marriage. That means a man can be legally forced to keep funding an expensive lifestyle for years, sometimes for life, even if his ex-spouse is fully capable of working. Then comes asset division. Most states follow something called equitable distribution. It sounds fair, but it doesn't mean 50-50. It means whatever a judge, a stranger, decides is fair. Assets owned before the marriage can morph into shared property if they were commingled. That means if you used money from a joint account to pay for maintenance, taxes, or upgrades, congratulations, it's now marital property. For entrepreneurs, this is a ticking time bomb. Any growth in business value during the marriage can be divided, forcing founders to take on debt or liquidate their own companies just to pay out an ex-spouse's share. It's financial Russian roulette, and men are waking up to it. The legal system, a game rigged from the start. Now layer on the legal system itself, and the risk compounds. With no-fault divorce, either party can end the marriage at any time, for any reason, or for no reason at all. That means marriage, in practice, is a unilateral contract. One person can end it, and the other has no say. Combine that with the fact that women initiate roughly 70% of divorces, and the picture becomes painfully clear. One party has the unilateral power to detonate a process that can financially and emotionally obliterate the other. And once you enter family court, you step into a world that's supposed to be gender neutral, but rarely feels that way. Even today, mothers still receive primary physical custody in the majority of contested cases. Fathers often walk into court already on the defensive, forced to prove their worthiness as parents against outdated stereotypes. The system doesn't reward peace. It incentivizes conflict. The longer you fight, the more the lawyers profit, and your life, your money, and your children become bargaining chips in someone else's game. A heavy truth. I know this is heavy. It's dark, and it's real. Many of you watching this have lived through it or watched your friends get shredded by it. So here's my question to you. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to a younger man considering marriage today? Drop it in the comments. Your words might save someone a decade of pain. And if this is resonating with you, hit that subscribe button, because what comes next isn't about giving up. It's about getting smarter. From breakdown to breakthrough, the shift in mindset. After my divorce was finalized, I was a shell of the man I used to be, a ghost drifting through the ruins of what used to be my life. I wasn't angry at first. I was broken. Then came the bitterness, that gnawing resentment toward her, toward the system, toward everything. But bitterness is a poison you drink hoping the other person dies. It eats you from the inside. So one night, staring at the empty walls of my new apartment, I decided something had to change. I started analyzing my situation the same way I used to analyze business problems. Coldly, logically, without emotion. And that's when the truth hit me like a freight train. The problem wasn't love. The problem wasn't women. The problem was the contract. The modern marriage contract. A broken product. When a product has a 50% failure rate, and when that failure can destroy everything you've built, you don't keep buying it because of tradition. You find a better model. The state-sanctioned marriage contract as it exists today is a flawed product that punishes success and rewards dependency. And that's exactly why smart, financially aware men are walking away, not from connection or love, but from a system that no longer makes logical sense. What's rising in its place isn't resentment, it's sovereignty. It's a new way of thinking, one built on independence, clarity, and calculated choice. This is the new playbook. Step 1. Build your empire first. Alone. The old model said, find a woman, then build a life together. The new model says, build your life first, entirely on your own. Before you even think about partnership, you need to build your foundation, your income, your investments, your purpose, your physical and mental strength. Because a man who has built his kingdom alone doesn't need a queen to complete him. He can choose to invite one in. That's the difference between needing love and choosing love. And here's the thing. When you operate from a place of strength, you attract better people. You filter out the ones looking for a lifestyle and draw in those looking for a mission. Build first. Share later. That's the mindset of the modern man. Step 2. Reject the contract, not the connection. Let's make one thing absolutely clear. Walking away from the state's marriage contract doesn't mean walking away from love, loyalty, or family. It means walking away from an outdated, one-size-fits-all legal trap that no longer reflects modern reality. In 2025, more successful couples are redefining what partnership means. They're choosing cohabitation, private agreements, or even custom legal frameworks that let them set their own rules, instead of defaulting to a government-issued template designed for the 1950s. And if you absolutely insist on marriage, then a rock-solid prenuptial agreement is non-negotiable. But even then, you need to understand something. Prenups can be, and often are, challenged, rewritten, or thrown out entirely if a judge decides they're unfair or if one party claims coercion. In other words, even your best legal armor has holes. The only bulletproof strategy: don't sign the state's contract at all. Reject the system, not the bond. Redefine partnership on your terms. Step 3. Vet for a true partner, not a dependent. Here's where most men fail. They confuse admiration with alignment. Too many men think being a provider equals being a partner. That mindset turns you into a resource, not a person. You want a woman who stands beside you, not one who stands on you. Someone with her own ambitions, her own career, her own stability. Because here's the truth. If a woman's entire sense of security depends on your wallet, that's not love. That's leverage. The 21st century partnership isn't about what can you give me, it's about what can we build together. So vet ruthlessly. Look for shared values, emotional intelligence, and resilience, not dependency disguised as devotion. A true partner will add to your life, not drain it. She'll see your success as a team victory, not a personal entitlement. Step 4. Build a life of overarching purpose. Here's the ultimate power move. Build a life so full of mission, meaning, and direction that a relationship becomes an enhancement, not the centerpiece. When your identity isn't built around your relationship status, you make better choices. You don't settle out of fear, loneliness, or social pressure. You choose deliberately because you already have purpose, peace, and power. When you're grounded in your mission, everything else aligns. You attract higher quality people, you make sharper decisions, and you operate from a place of abundance, not scarcity. Focus on your purpose. Sharpen your mind and body. Surround yourself with a brotherhood that pushes you to grow. Because when you become a man of unshakable strength and direction, the right kind of woman will see that, and she won't want to control it. She'll want to build with it. The Quiet Revolution, redefining strength and sovereignty. So why are intelligent, driven men choosing to walk away from marriage in 2025? Because they've done the math. They've studied the law. They've seen the emotional and financial carnage that too often follows when things fall apart. They understand the truth. Signing a contract with a 40 to 50% failure rate, where the downside is losing half of everything you've ever built, isn't a romantic choice. It's a reckless financial gamble. This isn't anger. This isn't misogyny. It's awareness. It's the quiet revolution of men who are finally thinking for themselves. They're not rejecting women. They're not rejecting love. They're rejecting a broken system that punishes commitment and rewards destruction. This is the evolution of male consciousness, a shift from obedience to observation, from tradition to truth. The death of the old script. For generations, men were handed a script that said, work hard, be loyal, provide, protect, and the system will take care of you. That was the deal, or so we were told. But in today's world, that deal has been voided. The laws have changed, the culture has shifted, the cost of failure has multiplied, and the reward has diminished. So smart men have stopped playing a game where the rules no longer make sense. They're not running from responsibility, they're redefining it. They're choosing to build, grow, and lead on their own terms, without signing their future away. The old script is dead. The new script? You write it yourself. The new path forward. Here's the truth. The goal in 2025 is no longer to get married. The goal is to build a life so powerful, so grounded, so purpose-driven that whether or not marriage ever happens becomes irrelevant. When you build your house first, your financial foundation, your inner peace, your mission, no storm can shake you. And if someday a true equal partner crosses your path, someone who respects your boundaries, your goals, and your independence, then great. Invite her to walk beside you, but never hand over the keys to the kingdom. Never surrender the sovereignty you fought to build. Because freedom, real, earned freedom, is worth far more than any ring. The revolution is quiet, but it's real. What's happening right now isn't loud. It's not a protest or a movement with signs and slogans. It's millions of men around the world making one simple, powerful choice: to stop following a broken system. They're opting out of outdated expectations. They're refusing to sacrifice their financial futures, their mental health, and their peace of mind for a contract that no longer serves them. And here's the key. This isn't about fear. It's about strategy. It's about being deliberate, the same way you would be with a business, an investment, or any other high-stakes decision. Smart men have learned to treat marriage like what it actually is, a binding financial agreement, and they're choosing not to sign on the dotted line until the terms make sense. From anger to awareness. When my own marriage ended, I was furious at her, at myself, at the world. But over time, that fury transformed into clarity. I realized I didn't need to hate the system. I just needed to stop participating in it. And that's where true power lies. Not in rebellion, but in rejection. Not in rage, but in reason. Because when you finally understand the game, you gain the freedom to choose whether you'll still play. And the smartest men in 2025? They're choosing to play by their own rules. A message to the men watching this. If you've made it this far, you're not like most men. You're thinking differently. You're questioning the scripts you were handed. And that alone makes you dangerous, in the best possible way. You're not bitter. You're awake. You're not anti-marriage. You're pro-awareness. So here's my message to you. Keep building. Keep learning. Keep protecting what you've worked for. Because love is beautiful, but freedom is priceless. If this message hit home, share it with a brother who needs to hear it. Someone who's about to sign a contract without reading the fine print. Because this conversation isn't about hate. It's about helping men make informed decisions. It's about building a generation of men who understand their worth, their power, and their options. The world doesn't hand out fairness, it hands out consequences. So arm yourself with knowledge. Choose logic over tradition, and write your own story. This is Psycho Shift, reminding you, you are not broken for wanting to protect what you've built. You are not crazy for questioning the system. You are simply awake. Stay sharp, stay sovereign, and never, ever hand over the keys to your kingdom.